Some of the biggest news from the UFC over the last year was Islam Makhachev vacating the title at 155 pounds after having a very dominant run as the champion and prior to becoming the champion to then fight Jack Della Maddalena at 170 pounds. Now this of course opened the door for Ilia Topuria to become a double champion, and now Makhachev is going to be trying to do that himself. Of course, we don't have an official date for this matchup, but I think it is one of the most exciting matchups, and it's absolutely a super fight that I think everyone should be looking forward to. So I'm going to be breaking it down with my early prediction and just kind of looking at this fight in depth. Jack Della Maddalena is the first guy I want to talk about. I'm going to start with general sort of notes about both fighters, and then we can get into matchup specifics in the future of this video. But we all know JDM for his boxing. He can box very well from both stances. He does throw good combinations to the head and to the body, and he does also have pretty good leg kicks, which we were able to see them be quite effective against Belal Muhammed in his most recent matchup. Great takedown defense was showcased against Belal Muhammed, but there was, of course, a lot of evidence that did suggest that JDM's takedown defense was great before that fight as well. But against Belal Muhammed, he did defend, I believe, 6 of 9 takedowns. And of those takedowns that Belal got, only really 1 or 2 of them were super effective for Belal to then go out there and score points. He's got great pressure, he does move very well on his feet, and he does have great cardio, and he can push when times get tough. And I think that's something that's worth noting. I know I only put round 5 versus Belal there because he did have a big push in round 5 against Belal, but I think round 3 against Burns could be there as well, because of course he did finish Burns in the 3rd round. And a lot of people do consider that to be a comeback win because some people had him down 2-0 on the scorecards. And it's also worth noting as well with that Burns fight, Burns took the back of JDM early in round 3, and JDM reversed it to get the finish. Now, a couple of things that I think that are a little bit sort of negative for JDM. Now, there's not too many because, you know, he is an elite fighter. It's kind of the same with Islam Makhachev. It's very hard to kind of nitpick on these guys when they are the best of the best. But in the past, we have seen him struggle against tricky striking. Maybe this doesn't apply to Islam Makhachev, but in general, I think it's something that's worth noting. The bad fight IQ against Hafez is somewhat concerning. You know, he did pull guillotine a lot in that matchup, and I think that because he pulled guillotine so much in that matchup, it is because it was the reason why he put himself in some bad sort of situations. There are injury concerns. Of course, when he did fight Belal, he was coming off a long layoff. He did have the infection in his arm. And of course, he broke that arm against Gilbert Burns in the fight as well. So it is something that I think that is worth noting too. And we also just haven't really in general seen him in super compromising grappling positions. Now, I know that this isn't really a negative. In fact, if anything, it is a positive. But I think when you look at the matchup, and Islam Makhachev, we know that he's got the arm triangle threat. He's got the rear naked choke threat. He's very good at getting into those positions. I would have at least liked to see JDM have to defend a pretty good rear naked choke attempt from Burns, or even Basil Hafez put him in an arm triangle or something along those lines to see him kind of have to deal with that sort of squeeze and try and slip out, because we know that Islam Makhachev is going to be able to at least attempt to get those positions going. Makhachev is known for his wrestling and his grappling, of course, but once he does get the takedowns, he is very effective with it. Now, I think that if you look at Makhachev's career as a whole, the sort of story of his career before becoming the champion was once this guy gets the fight down to the ground, it is over. He dominated Dan Hooker. He got the Kimura in the first round. He dominated Bobby Green. He got the ground and pound TKO in the first round, I believe. And then once he started to fight the elite of the elite, it did start to take him a few more rounds to get those finishes, of course, unfortunately, with the exception of the round 1 KO over Volkanovski. But once Makhachev gets the fight down to the ground, he is a very dangerous guy to worry about. He got a takedown early against Poirier, was able to threaten an arm triangle, and then took the back of Poirier in round 1. We saw him get a round 1 finish against Moicano. And just kind of in general, Makhachev is a very strong grappler, very strong clinch. Now, I think on the feet, he's underrated. You know, I think that this was really mostly showcased actually in the Volkanovski fight, the first one, where it was kind of clear that Volkanovski's wrestling was a lot better than I think many expected it to be, but Makhachev's striking was a lot better than many people expected it to be. And I think in that fight, it was kind of where we really saw Makhachev showcase some great striking for the first time. And then that striking translated well again in the second Volkanovski fight, and then even against Dustin Poirier as well, we were able to see it happen. He's got powerful striking. You know, he hurt Charles Oliveira. He knocked out Volkanovski. He even hurt Dustin Poirier in the first round as well. And he's got good cardio too. We saw him push in the 5th round against Volkanovski. We saw him push in the 5th round, of course, against Dustin Poirier too. And he is massive for 155. Once again, an asterisk because he is moving up to 170. And it is a negative that I mentioned just because I think it's worth mentioning. Now, on the feet, I think that one negative that I did see when I was looking into this fight was that he sometimes does throw desperate combinations. Now, these combinations are on the feet. You know, he did hurt Poirier in the first round, but after that, you know, he did kind of start to Juliana Pena his way while flailing some combinations. And in those moments, the striking defense kind of just gave out for Islam Makhachev trying to chase a finish on the feet. The takedowns don't come as easy when he gets tired. Now, this is because Makhachev is a very fast starter, which I will talk about later on in the video. But against Poirier specifically, the takedowns weren't as easy to come by when the rounds did go on. And even then, the first Volkanovski fight shows this as well. The striking defense in general is good, but it's not perfect. And also just kind of in general, he doesn't really throw much to the body or the legs. And in fact, against Dustin Poirier, he threw 0 leg kicks. He didn't throw a single one. And that's kind of like how Belal tried to fight against JDM. Matchup specifics for Jack Della Maddalena. I do believe he's the most effective striker Makhachev has fought. Personally, like, I do think he's the best striker Makhachev has fought, but I think a lot of people would maybe even look to someone like Dustin Poirier to be the best striker that Makhachev has fought, but for me it is JDM, but maybe there is arguments to be made. And then I just kind of think in general as well, you've just got to look at the Belal Muhammed matchup. You can't ignore it. It is a similar stylistic fight. And in that matchup, JDM did find some success in that one there. But I do think that Belal Muhammed is not as good at striking as Islam Makhachev. And also, I do think that in that matchup too, Islam Makhachev is going to attempt more takedowns than Belal Muhammed did. Now, I think the commentary tried to lead a lot of people to believe that Belal Muhammed wasn't shooting takedowns, because if you actually look back at the fight, that commentary was awful. Especially, I think Daniel Cormier needs to be called out for this. Daniel Cormier was just going on and on and on about how Belal Muhammed wasn't wrestling. Belal Muhammed shot 9 takedowns in that fight. You know, like, yes, you could say that he should have shot more. He shot 13 takedowns against Leon Edwards, but still, it's not that much more takedown attempts than what he did against Leon Edwards. It's just the fact that the takedowns came so easily against Leon Edwards, you know. And I think as well, the reason why Belal didn't shoot as many takedowns was because JDM was defending them very, very well. And I think maybe he just didn't really want to attempt more, because when JDM defended a takedown, there was an uppercut that followed as well. And I think that that Belal just kind of got a little bit discouraged in that sort of area. And also for JDM, he can push when time gets tough. This is kind of worth noting for both sides. Yes, he can push when times get tough. I said round 3 finish for Burns, not round 5, but you know what I mean. And also, he had to do a big push late in round 5 versus Belal, because in round 5, Belal actually took him down, but then JDM Hurley had to step on the gas in that one there. And he also was very tired in round 5, but it was a very high-paced fight. Both guys did land, I think, north of 130 strikes, and JDM, of course, was outlanding Belal quite a lot and was having to defend a lot of takedowns. For Makhachev, it's the first fight at 170 after a dominant lightweight round. He is the most effective wrestler JDM will have fought. Now, once again, a lot of people will probably quite like Belal as a wrestler. I think some people even like Burns as a wrestler, but I do think that Makhachev, the 155 skill set, is going to translate well to 170. And I'm very intrigued with this matchup, of course. Now, the thing about Makhachev too is he is a very kind of, I guess, multi-dimensional wrestler. He shoots a mix of setup takedowns as well as random takedowns. Now, what I mean by this is sometimes he will set up takedowns with a clinch. Sometimes he will set them up with boxing. Sometimes he will just shoot them out of nowhere. And I think that's important to really mix it up, because Belal Muhammed, he was just mostly trying to get the takedowns off the clinch, and sometimes even then he was trying to set them up with his striking, but because JDM was just so fast, so much better footwork, he couldn't do it. So Makhachev offering double leg attempts, or even offering single leg attempts, I think is going to make things interesting for him. And then for Makhachev, he did struggle against the southpaw Dustin Poirier on the feet and in wrestling in moments. He did go 5 for 16 in takedowns against Poirier, and I think, as I did say earlier, as he did get more tired, the takedown attempts did get more effective. Makhachev's striking is underrated, and Belal was able to find some striking success. That is definitely worth noting. Belal was able to find success on the feet against JDM, despite JDM clearly being the much better striker in that fight. Belal was still able to land effectively. He still was able to pressure effectively in moments as well, and I do consider that Islam Makhachev is a much better striker than Belal Muhammed. Now, another thing that I wanted to put as an asterisk, because this could mean nothing, but he did put a quote out there claiming that he is struggling to bulk. He said something like he's always been cutting weight his entire life, and now that he's trying to bulk, his body's not really accepting it. I think that you could view this in two ways. Maybe he's being honest. Maybe he's just trying to, this is tinfoil hat. Maybe he's just trying to say this to make JDM believe that he's not going to be a very big opponent in there. I could put a tinfoil hat on there, but I put it in there as well, just in case, Anyways, the keys to victory for both guys. JDM, I think it's pretty obvious what JDM needs to do. He needs to keep the fight on the feet. He needs to use both stances, as the southpaw seems to be effective against Makhachev. I think I lightly brushed over this, but Poirier was able to find a lot of moments against Islam Makhachev. That was a great fight. Makhachev was winning pretty clearly, but Poirier put up a good performance, and Poirier is a southpaw striker. He needs to work the body and throw the leg kicks, use a potential size advantage to make Makhachev work and sap on that cardio. And then I said the later rounds are key, as Makhachev likes to start fast. And that is something that Makhachev likes to do. He likes to shoot takedowns very early in early rounds. And that is something that he did against Poirier. In the first minute of the fight, I think he was shooting takedowns on Poirier. In the second round, he was shooting takedowns as soon as the round started. And he wants to get a quick finish, Makhachev typically does. And he will do that by trying to get takedowns, because when he gets the takedowns and he's not tired, that is when he can get his best ground and pounder and submission attempt work going. For Makhachev to win, he needs to get a takedown early. Give JDM something to worry about for the rest of the fight. This is something that Belal failed to do. And when JDM kept the fight on the feet against Belal, he gained more confidence. And I think that is definitely something that you need to kind of make JDM think about. Because if you get a takedown on JDM in the first round, he's going to go into round 2 thinking about that takedown. He's going to go into round 3 thinking about that takedown. Once he gets the takedowns, he needs to be heavy on top and look to take the back like Burns was able to. I think this is worth noting again. Once again, Belal Muhammed failed to do this. Makhachev, I think, should be a little bit more effective in being able to attempt to do this, take the back on JDM. I'm not saying that JDM gives up his back easily, but what I am saying is we have seen JDM's back taken before. He's to attempt more takedowns than Belal did. I did kind of just say this to kind of just do it, because once again, Belal, maybe if he was spamming takedowns, maybe it would have resulted in him gassing out and getting knocked out, but maybe it would have potentially resulted in him getting more takedowns than 3 against Jack Della Maddalena. And I think he needs to use the clinch to land knees and set up takedowns. Makhachev is strong in the clinch. I think his clinch game is underrated. We saw this against Oliveira. We saw this against Dustin Poirier. We saw this against Volkanovski. Now, Volkanovski was just an absolute menace in that fight, the first one, of course. But Makhachev is very good in the clinch. He lands a lot of knees to the body in the clinch, and I think that is something that could be worth noting against JDM, who I don't think you could say has bad cardio at all. In fact, I said he's got great cardio as a positive, but, if you can make JDM work, you can hit him with the knees, you can maybe make him tired towards the end. But ultimately, my prediction, of course, is Jack Della Maddalena to win. Now, here's the thing, guys. I need you guys to remember, Jack Della Maddalena to beat Belal Muhammed was actually one of my most confident picks on that entire card that did take place. I believe it was UFC, 314 or something, but Jack Della Maddalena was one of my most confident picks to beat Belal Muhammed on that card. And I do believe that this fight is similar to JDM versus Muhammad, which JDM won by decision using his boxing and his strong takedown defense. Belal did find some striking success, which is concerning when picking Jack Della Maddalena, which I am doing, as Islam Makhachev is a much more effective and powerful striker. Belal ain't known for his power. I think that Islam Makhachev's striking power needs to be respected. Makhachev is very dangerous early in the fight, but as long as JDM can survive the first 2 rounds, the takedown attempts from Makhachev will become more labored, and defending them should come easier. The size does make things interesting, as I consider JDM to be a big welterweight and Islam was a very big lightweight. I am picking JDM by decision, but with a lot less confidence than when I picked him to defeat Belal. Once again, I think you guys need to consider, when I picked JDM to beat Belal, he was one of my most confident picks on the card. I had $850 on Jack Della Maddalena to win that fight. I really, really believed Jack Della Maddalena was going to win that matchup, and JDM is plus 170 right now. Now, personally, I'm not going to be betting on this fight. I know that JDM has made me money in the past, but this is a low confidence pick for me. Maybe my confidence increases with time. It did with JDM versus Belal, I can tell you that much. But right now, I think that Islam Makhachev is one of, if not the biggest threat to JDM's run at 170 pounds. Maybe you could look at Sean Brady as a guy that could dethrone him, but I think right now we're looking at Makhachev being the toughest stylistic matchup for Jack Della Maddalena. And if he can defeat Islam Makhachev, I think that he can probably defeat most of the welterweight division at this point right now. I am picking Jack Della Maddalena to win this fight. And furthermore, tinfoil hat will be going on if Jack Della Maddalena wins this fight. I think we see Islam Makhachev go back down to 155 pounds, and I think we see him fight Superior, which would be the most incredible fight because I really love that matchup, and I'm sad we're not going to get it, but this is a good fight too. Let me know if you agree. I think a lot of people agreed with me picking Pantoja against Van. I think this is probably a little bit more of a controversial one because JDM is a relatively big underdog, but I am intrigued to see what you guys think. Let me know what you think of the video as well, and I'll see you guys in the next one.